Glad to have you back on this segment of Engendered. And if you're just joining us, you're right on time because the show is just about to begin. And once again, shout out to Hilda for for the exploit that she did, like for cooking for 4 days. Like, shout out to you, baby girl. Like, you did a very good job. And that strength, I don't know, Pamela, can you get that strength from anywhere?
Normally, I don't even like cooking, first of all.
Now, what if the criteria for you getting a man is you have to do this?
Chidinma.
You know,
every human being should know how to cook. It's not relating to any
exactly.
gender.
It's a survival thing, the thing of survival. On our previous episode, I think our guest was like, what if the criteria now for you to get a man is that you are going to cook? I said, I will be single, but I will cook, but see that straight. I don't joke with my sleep.
I was just seeing my mom. My mom was like, I saw it online. She was not like, why they no call me? I cook straight 2 days. What is my energy for? I have a lot of strength. I was just laughing. I said, you can't compare your strength with her. She's just a 27-year-old girl, and she's still strong.
The endurance, patience, the tenacity, like, it's something else. And I love it because it's a +1 for the female gender.
Of course.
Like, shout out to you. You did a good job.
The persistence. I know it's not a one-day thing.
It's
something that she has been practicing and doing. And if you check our young generations, we don't know how to just consistently do things.
Exactly.
That's our problem.
You know, and that's where another thing that came to mind was the fact that some people don't listen. You know, like they were applauding the chef that was assisting her, Chef Sonny. At some point, she wanted to just walk out, like, I'm tired, I'm already sleepwalking. Chef Sonny keeps talking to her. Yeah. I know people that once they've gotten to that marks, they are not hearing anything. Like, leave me alone, I'm walking out of that place.
Do you know who I am?
Exactly. Like, I'm tired, I'm fed up. But he kept on reminding her of the goal, what they wanted to achieve, and things like that. So, shout out to you, Hilda. That was a very good one, and we are so happy and proud of you. Now the whole world has heard your name. Like, the whole world is talking about you, and I'm so grateful for where you are right now. So now let's move on to our topic of discussion today. We're going to be, like Pamela said before the break, that we're going to be discussing a very sensitive topic. And we have spoken about this before, but we cannot stop talking about it because it's something that keeps occurring. And it's like, despite the sensitization, despite what we have said, people are still carrying out these acts. And we are wondering why it is so. Why is it happening? Now, today we are going to be discussing response to sexual and gender-based violence with a woman. Let me use just a phenomenal woman.
It is a reaction for me. You need to see a reaction. Just calm down.
A phenomenal woman. So, she is a filmmaker, she's an activist, she's a humanitarian feminist, and she's the CEO of Dorothy Njemanze Foundation. And just like the name implies, we are doing this topic today with Dorothy Njemanze. You're welcome.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. This is our bell. We don't have bell here, but manage this one. Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm stressed.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
I'm stressed, but we keeping on. I mean, in the entertainment field, they say the show must go on, and then on the other field, you know, no time to slack. Because
of course, the weekend is here where you can relax.
During the weekend, we respond to sexual and gender-based violence.
Wow. We have them right here. So before we start the show, let me just read a particular statistic, and it says that the incidence of gender-based violence is growing astronomically with the activities of the insurgency in the Northeast. From forced and early marriages to physical, mental, or sexual assault on a woman. 1 in 3 Nigerian women have experienced this type of violence at least at the age of 15. Now, gender-based violence is a global pandemic that affects 1 in 3 women in their lifetime. The numbers are staggering. 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Globally, 7% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than a partner. And also globally, as many as 38% of murders of women are committed by an intimate partner. Now, 200 women have experienced female genital mutilation and cutting. This issue is not only devastating for survivors of violence and their families, but also entails significant social and economic costs. Now, just in case you don't understand what gender-based violence is, I will now put it to our guests to do the explanation for us, because I think some people are like, what are they talking about? So what can you explain to them that gender-based violence is?
Okay. We started with sexual and gender-based violence, so let me stay the course. Sexual violence would be violence against anybody that has, that takes a sexual form. And sexual violence could be verbal, it could be physical. So verbal, baby, my color. You see?
Yes.
You people are victims.
Are you serious? I'm hearing this one for the first
time. That's it. My color, because see you now. Person where they try help.
Ngozi.
Ngozi, my color. And as they are telling you my color, they are using hand to grab you.
Yeah.
That's where it gets physical. First of all, it starts with the verbal one. And then when you don't respond to them the way they want.
Exactly.
You know that's what they call all of us now. You see? They start throwing insults at you for not responding to them and everything. I mean, the market is one of the places where that happens the most. Everywhere. Everywhere. Abuja markets are not left out, Try and go and buy shoes, try and go and buy clothes in the market, even tomato, everything. People feel the need to get into your personal space, especially because, you're a woman. How dare you choose to own your personal space or choose to regulate who comes into your personal space? That's one. Sexual violence could also take the form of, physical. So the groping, you're walking on the road or something, somebody just comes and grabs your buttocks or puts hands, into your chest area and all of that, groping, just random grabbings, touching you without your permission in places that make you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, touching you without your permission in places that make you feel uncomfortable, that would be groping. Another aspect of physical violence, physical sexual violence, would be rape. Attempted rape also can come under that, because the fact that the person did not actually rape you does not mean that the attempt, which was physical, did not hurt you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's also the emotional and psychological part to it, trying to frustrate you or trying to make you feel guilty of not yielding to sexual demands and everything. There's just, it manifests in different ways. Then on the other hand, gender-based violence would be, I've spoken to sexual violence. Yeah. Gender-based violence would be violence that is done to anyone because of their gender. And what is gender? Gender is a social construct by people in society. So, from the physical anatomy, they say people this way are expected to behave like this. So they are called man. These people this way, because of the way they are shaped, they look more attractive than this one. So it's better for them to serve pleasure or serve the role of delivering pleasure or providing pleasure. And that is the one that is relegated to women, The disaster in it is that because of patriarchal normative practices, a lot of men expect that women should choose to count after the last man in the room is tired of counting. Unfortunately, let's do a practical analysis. Twins born on the same day, right?
Yeah.
Everybody goes to school together, start school the same time. Most of the time in the class, who comes first? There's always one girl, coming first. And then when she finishes coming first and everything, in class there are peers. But by the time she gets to maybe secondary school, the way puberty tells on her, people are beginning to expect that she should be thinking about getting married. At the time they started, the first time career day was introduced to the both of them, they told boys and girls to dress up in what they wanted to be in future, right? Well, by the time the girl gets to secondary school, she's expected to drop her aspirations and start preparing herself to fit into under somebody's roof. It's so much. Different parts of the country and the world manifest their patriarchal normative practices in different ways. When you started, you reeled out the statistics. You reeled out some of the manifestations in the north and how it affects in the northeast. In South is a disaster. you know, the kind of things that happen in the places. In the Southeast, there's a lot of it. In fact, if you look in practical terms at response to sexual and gender-based violence, which would mean providing support to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, or providing support to potential survivors to ensure that they do not become survivors. So if we sanitize the markets, it means that we are creating a safer space for people who go to the market. A majority of the people who will go to the market or who would need to go to the market, maybe because they are married with children or whatever, would be women.
Women, true.
Or they have things to sell, would be women. So sanitizing the market is an effort at responding to sexual and gender-based violence to ensure people are safer. Creating daycare in the market space is an effort to have people to be able to check on easier on their children at daycare stage.
How feasible is that?
Absolutely feasible. The reason it hasn't been happening is because majority of the people at the helm of affairs are men. So what do they think about? Only the things they think are important to them. They feel the women should be taking care of people, but they forget that the women are running so many important spaces where the standards need to be upped in their own interest, in the interest of the men. So they came out when the COVID-19 pandemic hit us, and the world was trying to learn how to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic. Then the famous word called palliatives hit us. When the palliatives idea were rolled out in Nigeria, a lot of things, if you recall, foodstuff was primarily what made it to the palliative packages. And why was it foodstuff? Because that was what a lot of men needed to feed themselves and feed their families. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, menstrual hygiene issues were a big thing. Remember that roads were blocked with heavy military presence, amongst other things. So a lot of people, and we thought it would be for 1 week or 2 weeks initially, and then it ended up having us at home for months. Within those months, every week within those months, women and girls menstruated. Where did they get sanitary pads from? Remember that some people earn what they spend every day.
Yeah, true.
The people in that category of, you know, human beings, how did they have access to the food they ate over the period of time that spanned into weeks? And then how did they go for extra things like sanitary pads that they couldn't, you know, plan for? Another question. I remember watching a video of a woman who ran out with her wrapper, and a man kept chasing her and saying, "Come back here." And people were laughing about it because a lot of men said they didn't have any other thing to do, so they resorted to having sex. Many people did not have an opposition to having sexual relations with their partners, but they didn't want to engage in unsafe sex. Were you going to go out during the lockdown period to say to the soldiers at the checkpoints that you wanted to go and get, you know, contraceptives of some sort to be able to have safe sex? They were not permitting people who wanted to get food to pass. So was it going to be you? Now, how did these things, what did they translate into? Many people forcefully had sex. I rephrase. Many people raped their partners, their girlfriends, their wives, because the women did not agree to having unprotected, all of those things. Many people went back to using newspaper, tissue paper, wrappers, and all kinds of, you know, things for sanitary purposes during their menstruation. Yet when the palliatives rolled out, items like, you know, basic contraceptives and sanitary materials were missing.
When they're not there.
Yes. So the gendered lens for every issue is best had when you have full representation at each important table. Let's backtrack a little bit. Why do we not have full representation at many important tables? Because many people feel the men are in charge and they are doing well. Women just go home and stay. But the men are misbehaving too much because they don't know the realities of women. They don't know what it takes a lot of people. There's a story of a woman who met another person that was pregnant, you know, one of her staff, walking the car park, in the car park. And she said, what, you seem like you're struggling. She says, yes, that if there was parking area that was closer and, you know, marked out for maybe pregnant women or people with walking difficulties, that it would have helped her a lot better. Then she sat down and now started wondering, oh, how do persons with disabilities navigate? How do the elderly navigate? It was a big company. They had massive parking space, but they didn't think in terms of the people who come to the place. And that's why you have places mapped out for disability parking. I've spoken to intersectionality of the needs of the different kinds of women, because sometimes you say, oh, there are women in the space. The women in the space, are they young women? Are they elderly women? Are they women with disabilities? Are they rural women, women with experience of what happens in rural areas? Are they women with experience of what happens in urban areas? Are they educated women? Are they women in the informal spaces? We need to carry all women, you know, along if society must work for our good.
We'll cut it there, ma'am. Now, it's a really sad story. And now the worst part of it is that this report of gender-based is now everywhere, unlike before. Now we get to hear reports of women being abused, girls being abused. But then I still notice that we still have the increase of this violence. What is the enabling factor or contributing factor to this increase? Earlier you spoke about representation of women. Is it are you trying to say once women are represented up there, things will get solved?
No. There's a group of people that some people call patriarchy princesses, and those are the people that will say things like female genital mutilation. My grandmother it happened to my grandmother and her sisters, and they're still alive. And they survived it. It happened to my mother and her sisters. It happened to me. So why should it not happen to you? So those ones are there. It's not every female that recognizes the need for development, and that's why it's important to educate every human being, so that a lot of females will be able to better contextualize within the sphere of their realities, you know. I hear you talking about increase in reportage of sexual and gender-based violence. It's a good thing. It means more people are being sensitized about sexual and gender-based violence, and irrespective of the fact that it looks like the figures are coming up higher, there's a lot of underreporting that is done. From my experience working with the Dorothy Njemanze Foundation, which is a survivor-run, you know, organization that responds to sexual and gender-based violence survivors. Everything that is needed for response is really not available. Response is supposed to be around the clock thing, because crime happens round the clock. But so many times the resources for that is not available. So enabling factors for the increase in reports. People say, this is Nigeria, nothing will happen. This is Nigeria, nothing will happen. When people report, do we have systems in place to give appropriate support to these people that are reporting? Sometimes a report is not about what has happened. A report is about what could happen. If somebody is reporting stalking, for instance, the person is not saying the stalker has killed me or the stalker has done this. The person is saying the stalker makes me uncomfortable. The person is saying my husband or boyfriend expects me to submit all the money I make to him for him to disburse to me, and I don't like that. I don't have charge over that. The person is saying my lover is trying to make me choose between ability to access my children and ability to work. So I'm dealing with depression and anxiety. I want to be with my children because I love them so much, but I hate them because I know that I could have given them a better quality of life if I was able to work, and I'm not able to work because I'm a woman and I'm expected to sit indoors. I've gone between how seemingly normative practices translate to mental health issues, but at the end of the day, there's increase in reportage, and there's a lot more advocacy on what is right and what is wrong. We have improved laws that now recognize a lot of things that were normative practices before as violent crimes known to law with defined penalties. So these are certain things that account for the increase in figures that you get.
Okay, now let's look at it in your line of duty. I know like you're at the forefront of this because what I think your foundation basically stands for is response to SGBV. Now, what is the first line of response when you get this kind of calls? What are the first thing that you carry out?
Sometimes we are not the first people that are spoken to. So, the dimensions of response, part of our work is to prepare the public to be able to handle what they see or hear and be able to route it to us. So the communications part of it, the media advocacy part of it, improving capacity of people, to appreciate legal provisions and procedures is the primary thing that we do. Then when people better understand legal provisions and procedures, when they see something, they feel more motivated to say something, then they come to us. The first question is, did they come to us online or offline? And in what capacity did they come to us? Sometimes they came to us after having spoken to 15 or 20 people.
Does it matter?
Well, in so many ways it matters, because some of the times the first 2-3 people they must have spoken to would have told them to do some stuff that is wrong.
Okay, it influences their decision.
It influences their decision at the time, and it may not necessarily be in the interest. So if you told a family member who says, I remember that he's the head of the family, let us wait and let's pray for him. Let's go to the war room tonight and war against that thing, making your father to be touching you. We will pray. And then while you're praying for the person who it is happening to, 3 months after, the person is still being molested by the father, and you are still praying, and then in the 5th month you find out that the person is pregnant. Don't forget that the person did not keep quiet from month 1. The person actually spoke to people, but the people guided them wrong. So by the time it gets to us, you cannot blame the person for not saying anything or not doing anything. Sometimes the people they speak to do not have any capacity or power to do anything. E.g., classmates in school. Sometimes some people are lucky to get access to justice because the classmate they spoke to in school is close to their mother, and they will tell the mother something and the mother will come and try to help the person. It's a wide range of things. What does the person need? Does the person need sometimes some people just want to know what their legal options are, to know how to prepare their minds mentally before they take action. And we tell them what their legal options are. Other times, people just are at the breaking point and they say enough is enough. I've had 18 miscarriages. He has beaten out 13 pregnancies, 17 pregnancies. I stayed because I love him. My church says I should stay,
You've seen cases like that?
There are plenty. There are plenty. So there's so many things, or you hear, oh, well, I got mad because I talked to my sisters and my sisters said that our father is not, I should just answer our father because our father said if he's not the one that should launch me, I'll not last in any man's house. I thought they would come to my aid, but they told me that he has done the same to all of them. And because he's the breadwinner, we cannot do anything.
And the mother also covers up for them.
Sometimes the mother covers up for them. Sometimes the mother is at a loss because the mother has been so, power has been taken away from the mother. She is scared. She has lost relevance in society because she has not developed herself. And so even if she has a degree, a lot of the cases we have seen, the people say technology is everything now. I don't know what to do. The time I went to school, the computer was not everywhere. Now people are talking about everything. In fact, people are saying artificial intelligence. Where am I going to fit in? So these are real-time things that affect real human beings. It's a wide range of things. People need different things. Some people need medical care. We support them with medical care. And medical care helps to get evidence that is tenable in law courts. That's a beauty. Some people need to go to law enforcement, but they don't trust law enforcement. True. So we report cases to law enforcement on behalf of these people. Okay. Because there are so many allegations of forced settlements by law enforcement offices. How are you going to close a case that we reported without our knowledge? I will appear on programs like this and I will talk about the case with pride and say that case is still ongoing. If somebody has told you it is closed, money has exchanged, but to the best of my knowledge, nothing has happened. And that has helped a lot of cases not to be forcefully settled. Some people need shelter. We run a shelter. And so we give them support for shelter. Some people need some kind of empowerment. Move them to a more secure location, empower them, give them training, give them money for small business. They'll be able to put their children in school. They'll be able to take care of themselves. It's a wide range of things that people need. Those whose cases go to court, many of them don't know what happens next in court. Many of them don't know the charges, what their case, what the charge, on their case is. Many of them don't know what the posturing in court should be. They just don't know all these things. So it's our duty to help to guide people and say, oh, this is this, this is that. Many of them are so frustrated, they just need to talk to a counselor.
Okay, now,
We
sorry
provide that
to
service.
cut you now. Have there been cases of, okay, I've heard people talk about my husband raped me and stuff like that. Have you seen cases like that?
There are absolutely so many cases.
And does it suffice in the court?
Let me give you the most typical. There's psychological abuse that is recognized. In this case, if you refuse to recognize the rape, you cannot deny that whatever the action was psychologically affected this person. Who tells you? How do you judge psychological abuse? It is the testimony of the person who has experienced the abuse. You see? There are multiple dimensions. Sorry for cutting you. I was going to give you a simple analogy.
Okay.
When I don't punch before,
yes,
you don't punch. When punch catch you, what do?
You need to look to.
Don't they look anywhere. Just go straight to the toilet. Let's go to this toilet. That is an inanimate object that has been designed to receive whatever you are ready to deposit in it, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then the toilet is there. You are about to set yourself because purge don't catch you. You need to purge, and the purge is not a respecter of anybody. Then you see something move. It looks like a tail. That purge will pause. It will That's the one thing that I know that can psychologically reset your purge. Because you don't know whether it's a snake.
Exactly.
You don't know whether it's lizard. You don't know whether it's rats. Whose tail is that? And you want to go and serve it yourself so that it will chop you too. This is conscious effort in the heat of a moment for an inanimate object. Now let's go to the woman. Emotional being with human rights. Many people don't know. There's a reason why the human body, responds to feel. If I'm angry with you, that's how my body responds. If I'm not angry with you, that's how my body responds. So I'm not in the mood. It's a very important thing. It's a reminder that if you continue doing anything, you are going to hurt me. But if you are not well brought up, if you are not well exposed, if you are a criminal and you don't care about the law, you are not listening to the most important thing. I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood. If you continue when I'm not in the mood, you're only you're trying to hurt me physically. You are trying to hurt me, emotionally. Because at the end of the day, after that physical hurt, every time I go to ease myself, it's going to pain me a lot more. So you'll be saying that thing that happened the other time, you have still not forgotten. You have still not forgotten. Marital rape is a thing. Marital rape is a thing because it takes consent. The current definition of rape that everybody knows is penetration with consent. Bride price is not consent. Let's go to it the other way. The man has lost his job. He has not paid children's school fees. He's in debt and everybody is chasing him. And you are waiting for him to come and perform manly duties. His mind is not there. What his mind is at that point in time is, how am I going to get things? It is possible that the man too is not in the mood. In moments like that, the expectation is for you to recognize that part and be supportive of your partner. And this speaks again to why we cannot say children can get involved in marriage.
Okay, I think we should hold on to your thoughts. They're currently on the break for us. Okay, viewers, we'll be going on a short break now, and when we return, Engendered continues. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program. If you've just joined us, this is Engendered, and it's coming to you live from our Abuja studios here on KAFTAN television. Before we went on that short break, we were discussing response to sexual and gender-based violence with our phenomenal guest, Dorothy Njemanze. I hope I got the name correct.
I am who you say I am.
Okay, I want to know, are there specialized people or special people where the survivors of GBV go to? Like, are there any, like, is there a place where they can just go once they are survivors, where they can go to get healing? Like you said, I know your foundation is doing something like that, but they where people go to train, where they are trained people who your work is just to respond to GBV survivors.
Okay, so where do we go to for help? The first question is, who is going to the place? Is it somebody raised in a religious environment? You know, depending on the style of upbringing, somebody who is close to the parents will talk to the parents first. Somebody may choose to talk to the sister first or the brother first. Somebody may choose to talk to their pastor first or imam. Somebody may choose to talk to, there's a wide range of people.
Just like, sorry to cut you, just like the way that we have school now. You know, someone wants to go to nursery and pre-nursery school, they know that this school is for pre-nursery and they'll go there.
I hear you, okay. But why I'm saying this is because I don't know, there's a wide latitude of what could happen, whether it's coercion or sexual violence, verbal sexual violence or whatever it is.
Okay.
So the first place people report is the first place people trust. That's the number one. Then when they get to the place, sometimes it's the police station people go to, not necessarily because they trust them, but because it's a crime. They feel a crime has been committed, and that is where you go to report issues of crime. And they are supposed to be specially trained to handle issues relating to crime. But the question is, do they recognize the different peculiarities that come with the crimes of such nature? That's matter for another day. Some people go to the hospital after their head has been broken or something of the sort. And from the hospital, some degree of training is given to people to encourage their clients to not only document violence that has been done to them within the folders of the hospital, but also notify the law enforcement of such things so that action can be taken. That's another place where you have specialized training. I also mentioned earlier on that some people just want counseling, access to therapy. So from reaching, you know, first responder organizations like us, that we provide holistic first response support. Some people provide strictly mental health support. Some people provide strictly access to medical support. Some people provide strictly access to justice support, so legal aid support. You know, some people provide strictly shelter. But, you know, the Dorothy Njemanze Foundation provides holistic support. Some people provide empowerment support. And so your Social Development Secretariat office is supposed to meet women and everybody who falls within that category at the point of needs. We keep on hearing about empowerment. I bet who did they empower? Where did they empower this empowerment? Waiting be the criteria for empowerment, because when they break your head finish and you are only able to run out with only wrapper and everything, you need empowerment. You know, when you are able to run out with just wrapper, you need police or NAPTIP or some other law enforcement officer, maybe civil defense, to follow you back, to help you get your certificate, and not to be telling you, this one, they break your head like this. Now, wow, be like, your mouth go sharp. Oh. Yes.
True.
When these things happen, sometimes you need access to medical care. Even if you went into a hospital, the hospitals, the general hospitals, will not treat you because everything, it's a business that is running. So if you didn't come to a place like ours, where we try to look for money or beg people for money constantly, we are trained beggars, we have to beg, and we see the importance of begging. Now we beg and we get some money and keep, and so when somebody comes and is in serious distress, we help them foot the bills in those hospitals. In fact, the hospitals that we do, so get a medical report for rape, for instance, it's an average of 5,000 naira. whether the person that was raped is a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old or a 6-month-old. How much do 6-month-olds earn? Many of the parents of 6-month-old that are likely going to be raped are people who live in high-density communities, cannot afford 3 square meals. So that one you are talking about for those things, that's why you hear people say, okay, we use salt, we don't press on water, we they pray, and they rub our anointing oil. I say, may God no agree. Yes. I say, may God no agree, make wetin do, can't do again. So, you know, say now when she don't get, she fit get belle. Now I carry overdose of one medicine like that, give am. So, we just dey pray, make it not off my pikin, but make it just off the thing where they inside the pikin. Wow. I'm giving you real life quotes of what it is. You know, we had a situation where a woman had her 3-year-old that had injuries, you know, different injuries. But at the end of the day, the medical report states that the vaginal and anal injuries that she had were as a result of frequent penetration. A 3-year-old. It's her father.
Vaginal and anal.
It's her father that was the person. What did the woman tell us? Stop, my sister. You see, this thing now, I don't want it to be seen that because of what I'm doing, I'm affecting the anointing of my husband. He's a man of God. If you can only help us to get people that will follow us to the village, we'll go and pray and break the curse. You know, it's not my job. There's just right act.
I was going to that place. Now, this response that we're talking about, are there policies that aid or
I don't answer
response?
the policy.
Before you talk about the policy, it still goes back down to legal practitioners, down to justice system. Same thing.
Access to justice is the same, but
so
it's a long way.
I have something to read.
Okay.
They say, although Nigerian is a signatory to international conventions that seek to protect sexual rights of women and girls and have national legislation to the same effect, the practice, however, in practice, however, implementing the laws and bringing perpetrators of those crimes to book remain a major challenge in the fight against SGBV in this country.
Absolutely.
Now, what is your take on this judicial system? If you ask me, I'll say everything boils down to them, because they make the laws, and they cannot just making you implement, you follow up and.
Because when you ask them, they tell you they've
done. Yes, theory.
But they've been enacted. Are we following?
Yes, who is following now?
Let's go to theory and practice. In 2017, Nigeria was the first country to be found guilty of gender-based violence by a law court. That should be in the Guinness Book of Records. Hilda, take notes. It's a sad occurrence. That's in the Dorothy, Njemanze and 3 others versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria case for contravening the provisions of the Maputo Protocol. So the Maputo Protocol is yet one of those international legal instruments, you know, legal frameworks that remind people of the rights of women, you know, and Nigeria is fully signatory amongst other things. But does Nigeria look to ensure? So at the point we were saying, even though you're signatory to those things, you must domesticate the law for it to have some functionality within your domestic space, right? When they domesticated and everything, the next thing beyond domesticating is ensuring implementation. Now, the damages awarded in that case since 2017, this is 2023, I haven't been paid the damage. So that tells me the body language of my darling Nigeria. But I remember that my commitment to Nigeria as a patriotic Nigerian makes me to look beyond the hurts and keep making my efforts to sanitize the space. That is why I'm now a professional beggar doing all of this. Access to justice is a principal thing. If all the women who had been violated over time had had access to justice, then a lot of people would not feel the impetus or encouraged to continue perpetrating crime. That talk about this is Nigeria, nothing would happen, would not be a thing. So, with access to justice, we had long battles getting laws related to giving justice, legal framework you know, to upholding the justice or access to justice for particular people, including women, children, persons with disabilities. You know, we've had long battle ensuring that what is applicable to the men, for instance, are applicable to all these groups of people. It's not been easy, but we've made remarkable progress over time. There's even the National Action Plan on implementation of things like the UNSCR 1325, which speaks to engendering or enshrining peace, improving the ability for peace to reign, and getting more people, especially women, to be stakeholders in the peace processes. There are all sorts of things Nigeria is signatory to. But what is in practice in Nigeria? So we have the Child Rights Act, which clearly defines a child as everybody under the age of 18. Now, with the Child Rights Act, children cannot consent to sexual activity. I remember that before we went on the last break, I was talking about consent.
Yeah.
And this was where I was rooting that, you know, that point of mine. Children cannot consent to sexual activity. But you see how people, a few days ago on Twitter, there were the conversations about people promoting female genital mutilation so that children don't get wayward before they are 14 to 16 years old and they are ready for marriage. On Twitter.
In this century, 2 days ago.
In 2023, in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. How proactive has our police been to apprehend those people? During the NSAS protest, for instance, we had a lot of people tracked down to their homes for coming up to speak against police brutality. How proactive? So we find selective amnesia or selective activity or selective proactivity or selective reactivity by the government. We need systems in place that hold everybody accountable. We need, there's the National Health Act or policy that makes recommendations for emergencies to be catered to by the government, right? What constitutes emergency? Remember I talked about children who get sexually violated and need access to medical care. Adults have not finished being able to afford access to medical care. Is it the children? That tells us why a lot of children had instances where they were violated multiple times, but they never saw a process of holding the perpetrator or perpetrators accountable because their parents couldn't afford them. Those children will grow up encouraging docility towards access to justice. That's how the vicious cycle happens. The Child Rights Act is there. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is there. With the advent of the internet and the strength the internet, you know, has by the day, Cyber Crimes Act is there. There's a lot of cyber stalking, there's revenge pornography, there's all sorts of things, you know. But at the end of the day, the question is who is implementing. Once it is a woman, okay, so they say that you have multiple husbands, or there were the issues, then they say, madam, this one you are claiming that you were raped. Are you a virgin? There's a lot of training that has been pumped into the law enforcement offices. Nothing much is happening with the training. The officers that have been trained keep getting transferred to other units, leaving a huge deficiency in the gender units. 17th of January last year, our shelter was raided by men of the Nigerian police who we had called in to take somebody into protective custody. I was treated without dignity and kept on the road with an armed officer, dispossessed of my mobile devices, and then random strangers were taken into the shelter. And the police officers asked the residents of the shelter, is your husband aware you are here? She's there because she has a domestic violence case. Call your husband, let us know if he's aware you are here. All those kind of things. I said to the officers, can you speak to the gender units of the Nigerian police force to verify my identity or the identity of the organization, if in doubt? They say you are not permitted to talk to us. You all need to answer questions that we ask you. And so it means that even within the Nigerian police force, the gender unit is not respected. Now let's go to the duplicity of roles and the huge confusion. The VAP Act is domiciled with NAPTIP. NAPTIP is not funded enough to execute, things related to the VAP Act. The synchrony between the Nigerian police and NAPTIP, though it is improving, it's an improvement from where it used to be. But if NAPTIP has touched a case, police will not do anything to go near it. If somebody has reported to police and police is not doing anything, and they say, oh, it's within the VAP, let me go to NAPTIP. NAPTIP will not touch the case. Many of the cases that have been reported to us are trapped in the legal department or investigation departments of different law enforcement places. And if you are going to police, the more you go to police, the more expensive it is. NAPTIP has less expenses, NAPTIP doesn't request for you to pay for files and all of those kind of things, when you get to the place. But the truth about it is that the lived realities of survivors of sexual and gender-based violence need a lot more attention than the lip service that is played. There's a national sex offenders database. Many of the people, I'm aware of so many convictions that haven't reflected there. I am one of the ardent advocates of within 2 weeks of every conviction, the prison, the correctional facility, and the prosecutors should translate such information to NAPTIP to update their database. On the sex offenders database, there are some of the sex offenders listed there that don't have picture. Did they go to these correctional facilities without their faces, that their faces are not being captured? Because for people who are working with vulnerable groups, daycare, schools, elderly people, all of that, they are supposed to cross-check the national sex offenders database before they engage people where the thing is faulty. Who do we hold? I spoke to access to, empowerment. Time for empowerment of survivors. The first lady of this, and no shades cast. If it's your shade, catch it with shame or delight as it pleases you. But the first lady of this, and it's not necessarily a state, it could be a local government, it could be whatever, has empowered survivors of rape and all sorts of things with 20,000 naira or 50,000 naira or some package, including hairdressing and the rest of them. Let's do the mathematics. What business will you start with 20,000 naira? That will pay your rent and also cater to your children's school fees. In some cases, the amount of danger these people live in, public transport is not the safest thing for them to take. Let's go to a business for 100,000 naira. Which one will you do? I'm not saying that there are no businesses. I'm not saying everybody, but if you're giving 100,000 naira, you didn't have anything before, will you use it to pay rent? Or will you use it to start a business? It abounds. If these days, these car hailing services, that people can order online and everything, give the empowerment to be cameras so that the people can document their stories, or tabs. They can join media content creators. Give training in artificial intelligence. They can do a lot of things with it, a lot of tech-related coding training. Then we are coming. Give computer sets, laptop. Give vehicles, let them use and do these, when you close now, yawa, boats and the rest of them. So those are things that the money that is gotten from them, they can pay their house rents. They can feed their children and everything. They don't need to come back to you. Before we finish attending to new people who just came, somebody who we have supposedly empowered that, we just scratch the top surface of the injury the person has, and it couldn't, heal totally. It's back to us and said, the landlord don't chase me again. No. December 5th this year, somebody was brought to us for shelter. She was in the hospital, the National Hospital, for over 4 months. In total, we spent over 2 million naira treating this woman. Young girl, 21 years old. The women's network, individual women, were the ones who threw their weight behind us. Yes, to be ensured that we raise this amount of money. Until now, we've not sorted it out. She came, she had sepsis, she had all sorts of things, a long list of things. And another ailment that would entail for her to be treated for at least 6 months. If you say that your provision for health or whatever is 15,000 naira, remember that that was one person that we treated for with 2 million. Sexual assault referral centers exist, funded and supported by a lot of development partners. How accessible are they?
Okay, sorry, now you have mentioned a lot of challenges and you suggested a lot of things that should be done. Now, as we round up, I want you to say a word from your own perspective, from what you've seen, from your line of duty. How would you advise the people, the victims of this particular thing? Because we have seen cases where people come out, speak up, the next thing they go back again.
The victims are not your problem. They have reason to go back and they will keep going back. The people who are the problem are all of us that sit down and be looking at what the victims are doing. What are we doing to support the systems that render support services?
Okay.
Our shelter, we are always begging for food. We still need food. Do you have a business that can give us, you know, perishable or non-perishable food? You are not supporting us. Our women need food. They need food for their consumption and they need food for businesses. They need fertilizer for their small, this thing. They need different things. Are you able to do some training? They need these things. Periodic support. Your 5,000 naira a week or a month from different people will help to ensure that they have a system in place to make sure they don't need to go back. When the best option they have is the abusers, they will go back. So the fault is with us. Live to live, live to live, live to where? What have you done to support the places that they live to?
Exactly. You know, I've been listening to you, and it's a lot because we see these stories online, but knowing that you have you've like been with these people one-on-one is a very devastating thing. The fact that, like what you mentioned, the fact that somebody asks, like a police officer asks, are you a virgin? And you say you were raped. This is something that...
Or they ask boys, you know they shame. That rape where they talk, now woman they're supposed to rape will not be you.
You know, it sounds like a joke. It happens in movies and all of we see it, but then it's really happening and people are experiencing this thing. I will just keep to the last thing you have said. I will summarize it with this: be your brother's keeper. Don't turn a blind eye to things happening to you, because there are cases. I personally saw a movie where a woman was being abused by her husband. Everybody tried talking to, no, few people tried talking to her. She didn't listen. Eventually, she died.
They told the woman, Sister Osinachinko.
Okay. Eventually, she died.
And people are still singing
now. Now, leaving the children behind to what? Eventually, the daughter became a victim of rape, sexual assault too. So there are things that you do. You say, some women say, because of my children. Really look at the impact this is going to have on your children if you're not there to take care of them. Be your brother's keeper. Don't turn a blind eye to things happening around you. I beg you, if you have married a man that is abusing your children, it is not a crime to speak out, to call for help. There are people ready to listen to you and take you out of that problem you are going through. Think of the effect that will have on your daughter, on her marriage, on her future. It's not going to be a good thing for her to be telling those kind of stories in future. Please, let's do well to be our brother's keeper and don't turn a blind eye to things that matter. That's what we can take on today's episode of Engendered. Do well to join us on another episode. I remain Chidinma Ufomadu.
And I would say everyone deserves to be treated with rights and with dignity despite your gender. Let's try to live out for humanity. I am Pamela Ajaero. Bye.
Bye.